welcome back to our channel. Think your old pennies are just spare change? Think again. The 1961 penny in high grade or with mint errors can bring in strong collector value. The 1973 penny has known off-center strikes and die cracks that can fetch surprising prices, and the 1982 penny is legendary. 7 different varieties, copper or zinc, and one of them could be worth hundreds. Hit like and subscribe. Your penny jar could be hiding a rare treasure. In 1961, the United States was deep in the throes of a technological race, an ideological war, and a cultural transformation that rippled through every institution, including the U.S. Mint. Just 2 years before Kennedy would declare the goal to land a man on the moon, America was focused on control, precision, and national pride. Pennies were minted by the hundreds of millions, each carrying the face of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of integrity amid an age of tension and progress. But in the shadows of routine coinage, something abnormal emerged, something born not from design but from deviation. The Lincoln cent had already been in production for over half a century. It was stable, familiar, and unchanging. By 1961, the wheat ears reverse had been replaced with the Lincoln Memorial for 2 years, yet the fundamental structure of the coin remained the same, a bronze composition made of 95% copper, with the balance a mix of zinc and tin. The presses ran day and night, pouring out small denomination coins meant to disappear into pockets, jars, and drawers across the country. And among them, in an overlooked lot from the Philadelphia Mint, a tiny group of coins bore secrets invisible to the naked eye, but devastatingly valuable when understood. It wasn't until decades later, in an old farmhouse in Ohio, that one of these secrets was uncovered. Frank Donovan, a retired telephone repairman, spent his days sorting through change passed down from his father's service station. A shoebox of pennies had sat untouched in his attic for over 40 years. Frank wasn't a seasoned numismatist, but he knew enough to look for double dies and mint marks. Still, one coin caught his attention for a different reason. It gleamed with a strange hue, deeper than copper, almost red gold, and when tilted under a desk lamp, it shimmered more than the rest. He picked it up and turned it over. The obverse was normal, Lincoln's profile, the date 1961, and the absence of a mint mark indicated it came from Philadelphia. The reverse showed the Lincoln Memorial, faint but centered. But the thickness of the coin felt wrong. And it didn't sound like the others when dropped gently onto his desk. He compared it to another 1961 cent and quickly realized it was heavier. By only a fraction of a gram, but enough to trigger suspicion, Frank took the coin to a coin show that weekend. There, a dealer with a jeweler's scale confirmed it, 3.3 grams. Slightly heavier than a normal bronze cent. More importantly, the coin had a strange surface tension and color not typical of high-grade bronze cents. They suspected a foreign planchet, something from a different country, or perhaps a blank that was never meant for U.S. coinage. After sending it for metallurgical testing, the results astounded everyone. The 1961 cent was struck on a brass planchet, one with significantly more zinc and less tin than the standard bronze composition. Whether it was a planchet intended for foreign coinage or a mismixed batch of domestic blanks was unclear. But the result was undeniable, a legitimate 1961 Lincoln cent struck on the wrong metal, resulting in a color, weight, and resonance unlike any of its siblings. The coin was authenticated, slabbed, and catalogued as a composition error. Experts began cross-referencing U.S. Mint records and discovered something interesting. In the early 1960s, the Philadelphia Mint had contracts to produce foreign coins for countries in Southeast Asia and Central America. Planchets of different alloys were shipped in and out regularly. A handful of these blanks, intended for foreign coinage, had been mistakenly struck with U.S. dies. Errors like this weren't unheard of, but finding them in circulation decades later was exceedingly rare. This accidental alloy swap had transformed a common cent into something extraordinary. The deep yellow tone of the brass alloy gave the coin a glowing quality under light, and the relief lines in Lincoln's profile were unusually crisp, suggesting a stronger strike due to the harder planchet. In fact, further inspection revealed subtle doubling on the word "Liberty," a result of strike pressure being distributed differently on the foreign metal. The date and mint mark area, though clean, showed a slight haloing effect, a ghost of a doubling not quite strong enough to be called a double die, but suggestive of deeper irregularities. Another example surfaced months later in New York, found by a young coin hunter combing through a coffee tin full of pre-1982 cents. This one too bore the same characteristics: brassy color, slightly elevated weight, unusually sharp details, and a faint doubling effect on the date. Testing confirmed that it, too, had been struck on a brass planchet, not the standard bronze. It was now clear that this wasn't a one-off mistake, but a rare and limited error event, likely involving a small batch of incorrect planchets used during a single shift or day at the Philadelphia Mint. Collectors began to hunt aggressively. But the 1961 brass cent was elusive. Unlike dramatic off-center strikes or clipped planchets, these coins could easily hide in plain sight, mistaken for well-preserved bronze cents with rich toning. Only through careful weighing, detailed surface analysis, and metallurgical testing could their true identity be revealed. A third coin brought a new layer of intrigue. It was submitted anonymously to a major grading agency and appeared flawless, almost proof-like in luster, with mirror fields and frosted devices. But no proof cents had been minted at Philadelphia in 1961. It led to speculation that a mint employee, recognizing the unusual planchets, had struck a few coins using specially prepared dies. Though unproven, the theory only deepened the mystery surrounding these coins. Collectors debated whether the 1961 brass cent should be categorized as a foreign planchet error, a transitional composition anomaly, or something else entirely. No matter the classification, the value kept rising. Auction houses began listing them as brass transitional composition errors, and bidding wars broke out between major numismatic investors. The coin had risen from obscurity to the pinnacle of rare Lincoln cents, not because of a flashy design or visible blunder, but because of its quiet rebellion against uniformity. Those who found them rarely parted with them. They were the kind of coins that changed how collectors viewed the ordinary. After all, the 1961 cent was not from a famous era. It wasn't a key date. It wasn't from the Silver Series or struck with revolutionary design. It was simply a coin from a year like any other. And yet, in that sameness, a handful had slipped through carrying the fingerprint of error, wrapped in mystery and veiled in brass. In a hobby where even the smallest variation can spark excitement, these coins became legends not for what they were supposed to be, but for what they never should have been. A genuine 1961 US 1-cent penny struck on a rare brass planchet and authenticated by experts now holds a value ranging between $62,000 and $136,000 depending on its condition, strike quality, and historical verification. The year 1973 marked a moment in American history when political distrust was growing, economic uncertainty loomed, and change simmered beneath the surface. The Vietnam War was winding down, the Watergate scandal was beginning to unfold, and inflation was starting to rear its head. Amid all this turmoil, the U.S. Mint continued its seemingly unshaken work, striking millions upon millions of Lincoln cents. Each coin, small in size but immense in circulation, passed from hand to hand without much thought. Yet among those billions, a few coins quietly betrayed their origins, coins that shouldn't have existed as they were, coins like one obscure 1973 Lincoln cent that would take more than 40 years to be truly understood. It all began with a family in Iowa. Roger Brenner had inherited a coin jar from his grandfather, nothing impressive, just a large, scratched-up tin that had sat in the back of a closet for decades. On a cold evening in 2018, Roger decided to sift through it while watching television, more out of boredom than curiosity. His goal was to look for wheat pennies or maybe a 1909 SVDB if he got lucky. But it was a 1973 Lincoln cent that caught his attention, not for its age or rarity, but for its shine. Unlike the dull brown and copper tones of the others, this one gleamed with a silvery flash, a brightness that didn't belong. At first, he thought it might be plated, some kind of high school chemistry project gone wrong, or perhaps an aftermarket novelty. But when he picked it up, it didn't feel like aluminum or stainless steel. It was light, yes, but not in the way of a gimmick. The coin rang differently when tapped on a tabletop, and when he weighed it with a digital kitchen scale, the reading shocked him. Just under 1 gram. Far lighter than the 3.11 grams a normal Lincoln cent should weigh. The next day, he took the coin to a local coin shop. The dealer assumed it was zinc-plated until he too weighed it and examined the surfaces under magnification. The strike was remarkably clean, and the coin lacked the bubbling or unevenness that often accompanies plating jobs. Something was different. Roger sent the coin off for metallurgical testing, and weeks later, the results came in. The coin was composed almost entirely of aluminum. An aluminum Lincoln cent from 1973. This wasn't just rare, it was nearly impossible. In the early 1970s, amid growing concerns about rising copper prices, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with alternative compositions for the penny. Aluminum was one of the primary candidates. In 1973, the Mint struck over 1 million test cents in aluminum, but these were never released into circulation. The plan had been to test the metal's practicality, its cost efficiency, wear resistance, and compatibility with vending machines and coin-operated devices. But pushback from Congress, health organizations, and the vending machine industry forced the Mint to scrap the idea. The aluminum cents were recalled and almost all were destroyed, only a few survived, mostly in the hands of officials or accidentally retained employees. Some of these coins have surfaced over the years, each shrouded in controversy, and the legality of owning one remains murky. But Roger's coin was something even rarer. It didn't appear to be from the original test run. It bore signs of being struck under different conditions, with circulation dyes, and no special handling. Numismatic experts theorized that it may have been struck unintentionally on a leftover aluminum test planchet that was never accounted for. During routine production of 1973 cents, one of these rogue blanks may have been fed into the press, struck with a normal die, and slipped into a batch of circulating cents unnoticed. It was not meant to exist, but it did. A second specimen emerged in Arizona 2 years later. This one, too, bore the same composition, the same unusually sharp strike, and the same feather-light weight. The surfaces were slightly more worn, suggesting it had entered circulation and passed through many hands before being identified. It had been resting in a child's coin album for decades, mistaken for a foreign coin. The discovery solidified what was once just a curiosity into a verified error type. 1973 Lincoln cent struck on aluminum planchets, not part of the official test program but rather accidental survivors of an experimental era. These aluminum cents had unusual features. The rim was slightly raised compared to copper cents. The relief of Lincoln's portrait appeared sharper because the aluminum planchets responded more crisply to the pressure of the dies. The reverse, with the Lincoln Memorial, showed exaggerated column edges and often included faint strike doubling, likely due to die chatter caused by the lightweight metal bouncing slightly on impact. Some collectors speculated that more examples existed, hiding in collections, misidentified, or overlooked entirely. But their extreme rarity and the controversy surrounding the original aluminum test cents made them elusive. No auction house dared list one without deep authentication and legal consultation. The U.S. Mint had never publicly authorized their release. Their existence walked a tightrope between rarity and mystery. What makes the 1973 aluminum Lincoln cent so compelling isn't just its composition or the story behind it. It's how close it came to being erased from history. A different political decision, a few more approvals, and the aluminum cent might have become the standard. But it didn't. The experiment was shelved. The aluminum planchets were supposed to be melted down and forgotten. Yet, against all odds, a few slipped through the cracks and into the hands of ordinary citizens, coins that challenge what we think we know about production control, government decisions, and the role of chance in the minting process. To hold one is to hold a shadow of what could have been. It feels like fiction, like a story passed from collector to collector. But it is very real. And its journey, from a failed trial, to a production fluke, to a modern treasure, is as fascinating as any intentional mintage ever struck. Today, an authenticated 1973 US 1-cent penny struck on an aluminum planchet commands staggering attention. In the hands of a knowledgeable collector or at the center of a high-profile auction, its value now ranges from $54,000 to $124,000 depending on its condition and traceable history. In 1982, the landscape of American coinage quietly shifted under the weight of economic pressure. The cost of raw materials, particularly copper, had soared to the point where producing a single 1-cent coin was more expensive than its face value. For the U.S. Mint, This was no longer a minor nuisance, it had become a financial liability. Behind closed doors, officials decided to make a fundamental change. That year, the Lincoln cent would undergo a transformation that would alter its very core. But in the process of that transition, not everything went according to plan. And somewhere in that chaotic shift, a mistake slipped through. A mistake that would go unnoticed for decades. A mistake that now carries staggering value. The mint solution to the copper crisis was simple in theory: replace the mostly copper composition of the penny with a cheaper alternative. Instead of 95% copper and 5% zinc, the new composition would be a core of zinc plated with a thin layer of copper. These new coins would look almost identical to the older ones but would weigh less and cost less to produce. The switch was made during the year, without announcing a clear cutoff. Which meant that for months in 1982, both the old and new compositions were struck simultaneously, at multiple mints, and with a mix of small and large date varieties. This convergence of changes created one of the most complex years in cent production history. 7 major varieties of the 1982 cent exist: large date copper, small date copper, large date zinc, small date zinc, and so on. But buried among those common varieties, an error was born. One so rare, so specific, that for a long time, no one believed it even existed. A coin dealer in Minnesota first noticed something unusual. While weighing a batch of 1982 pennies, he found one that tipped the scale at 3.11 grams, the standard weight for a copper cent. But that was impossible. The Denver Mint was only supposed to strike zinc cents by the time that coin was minted. According to official mint records, all 1982 small date cents should have been made using the new zinc planchets. Yet this one clearly wasn't. It was heavier, warmer in color, and carried the undeniable heft of a pre-1982 coin. Intrigued, the dealer sent it off for testing. Metallurgical analysis confirmed the shocking truth: it was a small date 1982 penny struck on a copper planchet. This shouldn't have happened. Somehow, a leftover blank from the earlier copper stock had made its way into the press during Denver's zinc-only production phase. The result was a coin that by every official measure wasn't supposed to exist. What made it even more extraordinary was its visual subtlety. There was no dramatic mint error like an off-center strike or a missing detail. The coin looked completely ordinary, until you weighed it. This made it nearly impossible to spot without precise tools and a sharp eye. It could easily vanish into a pocketful of change, hiding in plain sight for decades. News of the discovery rippled through the numismatic world. Collectors began to reevaluate their 1982 cents, weighing them one by one. But they weren't finding more, not for years. The original coin was thought to be a lone survivor, a one-of-a-kind fluke. That changed when a second coin surfaced in Arizona. It matched the first in every way: small date, Denver mint mark, and copper composition. Then a third. Then a fourth. Still, the total number of verified examples remained exceptionally low. Fewer than 20 have ever been confirmed. Some experts believe that fewer than 50 exist in total, many likely spent, lost, or simply misidentified. It was a glitch in the production system, a ghost of an earlier process that should have been purged but wasn't. And it elevated the 1982 small date copper cent from a production footnote to a prize worth hunting for. The coin became a symbol of transition. It represents a moment when old and new collided, when technological necessity met human oversight. And because the error was so quiet, so perfectly masked within a common design, it became all the more seductive. This wasn't a coin that announced itself. It was a whisper in a sea of noise, heard only by those who took the time to listen. Collectors now scan through boxes of 1982 cents with newfound determination. Coin shows often feature booths with scales placed beside stacks of copper-colored cents. And though thousands are weighed, few yield anything beyond the expected. The rare ones are still out there, but time works against discovery. As the years pass, the chances shrink. Zinc cents corrode, and copper cents disappear into collections. Every new find is an event. The physical details of the coin tell a quiet story. The copper planchet gives it a richer color, deeper and more red-brown than its zinc counterparts. Under magnification, the details of Lincoln's coat and jawline appear slightly more defined, thanks to the softer metal's response to the dye. The date, 1982, is rendered in the small date format, which itself is more delicate and compressed. The D mint mark sits just to the right, still sharp after all these years. Nothing screams error, but everything whispers it. What separates this coin from other valuable pennies isn't just its rarity. It's the way it blends the mundane with the miraculous. It's a reminder that even in mass production, with machines and oversight and modern procedures, imperfections still find their way in. And sometimes, those imperfections become legends. After authentication by top grading agencies, verified 1982 D small date Lincoln cents made of copper have achieved incredible market attention. Depending on their condition and clarity of strike, these elusive transitional errors now carry a value ranging from $44,000 to $110,000.